This little talk is called Shakespeare's Sonnet People, the Mystery Solved, by David Honeyman. 400 years have come and gone since Shakespeare's death, yet in all this time no agreed solution has been found to the mystery of the sonnets, the problem of identities for the sonnet people, especially the mysterious dark lady. No wonder some scholars say, waste no more time on a pointless search. The whole shady sonnet story is fictional. But that is a gospel of despair, and here we claim quite the opposite, that the solution which involves real people who are contemporary courtiers of Queen Elizabeth, that this solution is at hand. For Shakespeare has left us clues in the sonnets in the form of language layering, double meanings, double entendre, and puns. But of course, if you despise puns, you may miss the meaning. But first, to understand the background, we need to know that Henry VIII, before he married Anne Boleyn, had as a mistress Anne's elder sister, Mary Boleyn, and by her, Henry the King had a baby daughter, Catherine. He could not marry Mary because his queen, Catherine of Aragon, was still alive. However, a compliant courtier, William Carey, was happy to marry Mary and take over the royal baby as his own child. Baby Catherine was thus deemed henceforth to be Catherine Carey, though in truth she was, of course, really Catherine Tudor. Later she married, aged 16, in 1540, Sir Francis Knollys, who had recently returned from the Protestant exile place Geneva. Catherine's brother, Henry Carey, became First Lord Hunsdon. These people were both cousins of Queen Elizabeth. First Lord Hunsdon, who was made Lord Chamberlain and put in charge of censorship of plays until, of course, his death in 1596. And during the earlier period, he was effectively Shakespeare's boss. Sir Francis Knollys and his wife had several children, including notably Lettice Knollys, really Letitia Knollys, who was important for this discussion because she married Walter Devereux, the first Earl of Essex, and became the mother of Penelope Devereux, who, it is claimed here, was to become Shakespeare's Dark Lady. The Earl of Essex himself knew very well that his daughter Penelope had royal blood, even though with a bar sinister in the pedigree, and he thought she had the potential to make a good marriage. He had taken ill in Ireland and, suspecting correctly that his days were numbered, he tried to arrange a plan with Sir Philip Sidney's family for a future marriage between the daughter Penelope and Philip, but nothing came of the project because of the death of the Earl of Essex. Until, however, Penelope's career as a maid of honour when she was 18 to the Queen was launched. And she finally aroused Sidney's amorous interest, but it was too late. When just turned 18, she had endured forced marriage to Lord Rich, 1581 that was. Upset by his loss, that is, losing Penelope, Sidney wrote his famous sonnet sequence of poems in her honour called Astrophel and Stella. Astrophel means star lover and himself, and Stella, meaning star, was Penelope. In the poems, he uses the key word rich as a pun to indicate Stella's real name, which was Penelope Rich, his lost mistress. In 1592, Shakespeare was in trouble because the theatres were closed owing to plague. Effectively, Shakespeare was out of a job. He hoped that by writing poetry, sonnets, he might win financial patronage. Until, at any rate, the theatres reopened, because he was really, of course, a dramatist. But he used Sidney's sonnets as his model. He also took over the same mistress, Penelope, and used the same key word, rich, several times in the sonnets to identify the sonnet. Mistress, Shakespeare's sonnet's mistress, as really Penelope Rich. This same person was also to become Shakespeare's dark lady. She was only dark in her eyes and her deeds, which were adulterous. And thus dark. More of that later. In the interval between Penelope's marriage in 1581 and the plague in 1592, big changes occurred in Penelope's life. The Earl of Leicester, who had survived for a long time as Queen Elizabeth's advisor and favourite, had been well rewarded by her, but was not satisfied. He wanted power. namely that the Queen would marry him and make him king. It was probably to put him off this idea that Elizabeth let it be known in the French court that the Duke of Anjou would be welcome to visit England and discuss matrimonial possibilities. Leicester acted quickly and took his revenge. He quickly married the recently widowed Countess of Essex, i.e. Lettice Knollys, granddaughter of Mary Boleyn and Henry VIII, so she was, I may say, a shadow queen. She was also Queen Elizabeth's bête noire, and she was also the mother of Penelope and her brother Robert, the young second Earl of Essex. Leicester died in 1588, Armada year, and left Lettice well off. He also left his big house in London, which was called Leicester House. It was changed. He left it to young Robert, who changed the name to Essex House. Robert immediately kept accommodation free for Penelope to let her come at any time, leave her husband and children, and stay with him, ostensibly, Essex, her brother. But in fact, she would stay with her lover, Charles Blount, Lord Mountjoy. This adulterous affair is the long-time concealed scandal of Shakespeare's sonnets, and why Penelope was called the Dark Lady. Examples of Shakespeare's cryptic references to Penelope were 1. Sonnet 15. This is one of Shakespeare's first 17 sonnets, persuading his young male fair friend to marry, and not to waste his time sowing his wild oats profitlessly. What number 15 effectively says is, with the key words stars and rich, is human life is under the spell of stars. And similarly, Shakespeare's friend is enthralled to a star, Stella, or Stella's sexual attraction. He should marry, the friend should marry. We now know confidently that this friend was the Earl of Southampton, Essex's friend, because his surname, Wriothesley, Wriothesley, is built into Sonnet 17, last two lines. Find it for yourself. Come now to Sonnet 52. Here the rich refers not to Penelope, but to her husband, Lord Rich, whose matrimonial pleasure is blunted, i.e. spoiled, by Penelope's affair with Charles Blount, Note the pun on blunt. His matrimonial pleasure is blunted. That is of Lord Mountjoy. Here the co-occurrence of two key words, rich and blunt, as puns, makes this a especially convincing example. Now Sonnet 97. The teeming autumn, big with rich increase. Here the reference is to Penelope's illegitimate offspring by her lover Mountjoy. These children are the wanton burden of the spring, and have but hope of orphans, which means they are illegitimate. Now Sonnet 146, which says, poor soul, the centre of my sinful earth. This sonnet provides us with surely the finest example of Shakespeare's doublespeak. Ostensibly, the theme is religious, poor soul. But at the secondary level of meaning, poor soul means poor person. And the code word rich in line 12 narrows the meaning down to poor Penelope. Similarly, these rebel powers should be supplied with two levels of meaning. One, these rebel powers are the lusts of the flesh, and two, they are members of the Essex Circle in rebellion in 1600 against the Queen. Actually, this double significance in meaning in Shakespeare's sonnets has not been appreciated by editors hitherto. Line 2 of Sonnet 146 needs emendation, as it has two syllables too many and a printing duplication. I suggest that this line should read, Queen of these rebel powers at the array. Shakespeare could have found the word queen in Sidney's sonnets. It would have been appropriate and even poignant. Here, in view of Penelope's royal, if tainted blood, and her influence, her known influence on the Essex rebels, was probably only because of her lover Mountjoy's strong hand. He had just conquered both the Spaniards and the Irish rebel O'Neills in the year 1500, the Battle of Kinsale. He was more or less impregnable. Sonnet 154. This last sonnet concludes very appropriately with a final tribute to Penelope and Mountjoy. Here, for the first time, I think, identified. Again, it is a matter of double meaning. In line 7, the general of hot desire has two meanings. General means one, generator of hot desire, which is Cupid, generator of love. And two, the secondary meaning of general is the military general, highly sexed one, i.e. Mountjoy. his mistress Penelope, and finally, after she got divorced, became his wife. She is identified in this sonnet by the word fairest votary. Fairest is used by Shakespeare's rival poet Gervase Markham in his famous long poem The Revenge, 1595, where in the dedication to her she's called the fairest. So finally, it's claimed here that the sonnet people are 1. Shakespeare's fair friend, Southampton. 2. The rival poet, Gervase Markham. 3. The dark lady, Penelope Rich. 4. The general of hot desire, Mountjoy. And Mr. W.H. of the dedication is from Sonnet 20, Mr. Woman's Heart. W for woman, H for heart. This is a new candidate. This dedication is a printer's substitute for the dedication lacking, the lack of one. David Honeyman, 2017.